Once upon a time, we were told Cinderella's virtues would make her shine. Yet in every original version, she labors in silence, her name and kindness ignored. Her sudden visibility does not follow reward for hard work. It arrives the moment she is put on display, remade with borrowed wealth and beauty. Centuries later, recognition still waits until we look the part. In fairy tales, unpaid caregivers perform 2.6 times more invisible labor than men. And online, visual polish draws algorithmic spotlight. Why do we stay unseen until a transformation signals our value? So the real question is not whether Cinderella found her happily ever after. It is, how many of us are still waiting to be seen without needing a transformation first? Cinderella's story begins in the kitchen, not the ballroom. Her name, once her own, is replaced by a word for ashes. In the oldest versions, Perrault in 1697 and the Grimms in 1812, she is not just ignored, but erased. Her identity dissolved into chores and soot. The household turns on her, not because she lacks goodness, but because that goodness is invisible, unremarkable as the dust she sweeps. Her kindness, patience, and quiet skill keep everything running. Yet the story lingers on the laughter of her stepsisters and the indifference of her stepmother. In Perrault's telling, she is mocked for her rags. In Grimm's, she is forbidden to sit at the table and left to sleep by the hearth. The very people who depend on her refuse to see her as anything but a servant. No one asks her name. No one thanks her. She is expected to smile through it all, to accept that usefulness is her only role. This is not a world where virtue draws attention. It is a world where being needed and being noticed are opposites. The more essential she becomes, the less she is seen. The tale does not promise that hard work will be rewarded or that patience will lead to recognition. Instead, invisibility is the starting point, the baseline condition for anyone whose value is measured in silent labor. What does it mean to grow up with a story where goodness is ignored until it can be displayed? Where being kind is not enough to be seen? For many, this is not just a fairy tale. It is the first lesson in what will and will not make us visible. A day in Cinderella's world is measured by tasks, not by hours. The story catalogs her chores, sweeping, scrubbing, mending, fetching, so routine they blur into the background, yet nothing in the house works without her. This is not fantasy, it is a mirror. Globally, women perform unpaid care and domestic work at a rate 2.6 times higher than men, according to United Nations Women. That is billions of hours each day, invisible in economic statistics, unmentioned in family lore. The caregiver's hands, whether stirring a pot, soothing a child, or keeping mental lists no one else remembers, rarely appear in photographs. Their labor is expected, not celebrated. Cinderella's patience is legendary, but patience alone never changed her fate. The story only shifts when a fairy godmother appears, not to reward virtue, but to supply the right materials. Perrault's list is precise. A shimmering ball gown, glass slippers, a golden carriage, and a strict midnight deadline. None of these gifts alter Cinderella's character. They alter her appearance. The transformation is total, but only on the surface. Suddenly, the same girl who was overlooked in rags is the center of the room. The prince sees her, the crowd parts, and every eye follows her across the floor. Recognition arrives on cue, triggered by the right signals: gloss, spectacle, the unmistakable look of value. The lesson is quietly unsettling. The work that kept the household running was never enough. Only when Cinderella is dressed for display does anyone notice she exists. The fairy tale's logic is clear. Transformation is not about becoming worthy, but about becoming visible. A scroll through any social feed today reveals a silent pattern. The posts that rise to the top are rarely the raw, unfiltered moments of daily life. Instead, it is the polished images, the ones with perfect lighting, careful edits, and curated backdrops that draw the algorithm's gaze. On platforms like Instagram and TikTok, high production visuals are not just preferred, they are propelled. A study of over 1 million Instagram posts found that images with professional level polish receive 2.5 times more engagement than those without. The difference is not subtle. Algorithms are designed to reward what looks valuable, boosting posts that signal status, taste, or aspiration. For creators, this is not just a matter of vanity. A micro-influencer with a modest following can watch their analytics shift overnight. A carefully staged glow-up post doubles their reach, while an everyday snapshot barely registers. The same person, the same story, only the surface changes. Scholar Carolyn Kane puts it plainly: algorithms program perception, compressing reality to boost the perceptually dominant. In this world, the digital ball gown is a filter, a ring light, a well-timed thumbnail. Recognition is not about who works hardest or shares most honestly, but about who can be rendered legible to the machine's eye. The lesson is as old as the fairy tale. Visibility is triggered not by substance, but by spectacle. Every society has its shortcuts for deciding who matters. In a crowded room, the eye is drawn to signals, polished shoes, a confident posture, a shimmer of fabric that catches the light. Centuries ago, a glass slipper could be enough to rewrite a life. Today, the cues have multiplied, but the logic remains. Humans are wired to make snap judgments based on appearance and presentation. Psychologists call these status signals. They are external markers that help us quickly assess where someone fits in the social order. The brain relies on these cues because they are efficient, not because they are fair. This is not just about fairy tales or Instagram feeds. Studies show that even subtle changes in dress or grooming can shift how others rate someone's competence, warmth, or trustworthiness. A well-cut suit or a perfectly timed selfie can open doors that effort alone cannot budge. The signals do not have to be expensive, only legible. What matters is that they are recognized by the audience, whether that is a recruiter scrolling through resumes or a stranger glancing across a party. So we learn to curate ourselves, often without realizing it. We edit, we polish, we present. The burden quietly shifts. Being worthy is not enough. Being seen as worthy becomes the real work. Pause for a moment. When was the last time you felt invisible until you changed something on the outside? If the answer comes quickly, you are not alone. A resume enters the job portal like Cinderella at the palace gates, unseen, unremarkable, waiting to be noticed. But before any recruiter glances at a single line, an automated system has already judged its worth. Applicant tracking systems, ATS, filter out as many as 75 to 88% of resumes before a human ever sees them. The process is clinical. Algorithms scan for keywords, formatting, and the right credentials. If the resume does not match the template, if it is missing the right phrases or arranged in the wrong order, it is quietly discarded, no matter the substance behind it. The applicant's story, skills, and effort are invisible unless they pass this external test. It is not the person who is evaluated first, but the polish and the fit. The logic is eerily familiar. The glass slipper does not measure character, only conformity. In the modern ballroom, the gatekeeper is an algorithm, and the first dance goes only to those who are already dressed for the part. Long before glass slippers and pumpkin carriages, a story from 9th century China told of Ye Xian, a girl whose only escape from obscurity came through a pair of golden slippers. Her labor was endless, her suffering unnoticed, until a lost shoe caught the king's attention at a crowded festival. The pattern is ancient and persistent. The world overlooks the one who keeps it running, then pivots when a sign of value appears. Across continents and centuries, the tale repeats itself. Whether in gold, glass, or fur, the slipper is always an object of recognition, not a reward for character. The story lingers because it feels true, not just in its details, but in its emotional logic. How many have spent years doing everything right, only to find no one looking their way until something glittered, an achievement, a new look, a title, a moment of spectacle? The ache of being unseen, then suddenly visible, echoes across cultures. It is not just Cinderella's story. It is an old recurring lesson in what it takes to matter. Real worth is quietly built, but visibility is often borrowed. In a world where 75% of resumes vanish before a human glance, recognition still demands performance. So the real question isn't whether Cinderella found her happily ever after. It's how many of us are still waiting to be seen without needing a transformation first. Share your thoughts below.